Hi guys, this video tutorial is going to cover how you can transfer game objects or models from one marker to another marker in Vuforia using Playmaker in Unity 3D. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you it working. So you can see we have two markers. Okay, one has a cube that I've squashed down to sort of a plane shape, and another one is a sphere. And what I can do is I can take the sphere and let's say I put it there at the corner. I can then click on the sphere and it will create another sphere that is attached to this marker. Okay, and in this way I can sort of go around from corner to corner. Hang on a second. So I'll move this one instead. So if I put that one there, and in this way I can use one marker as a sort of creation tool and the other marker as my map. So if this was a city planning app that you are making, you can see that the stones texture, which is this one here, could be the map of the city, and this one could be the different buildings. You can also use the same if this was like an Age of Empires AR game. Maybe this is where you'd place walls or buildings and so on. Now I'm using the mouse click, but you can use on the Android like on touch, or you could even use virtual buttons. Virtual buttons we covered in a different tutorial. All you'd have to do is hook up the virtual button here and just replace the front end of the code that I'm going to show you. So let's get started. So we'll make a new scene. We need to set up our basic AR setup, so we need an AR camera, and we'll need 2 image targets. We'll delete that one. We're going to be using the stones and chips dataset. I'll make this one stones, and I'll make this one chips. Cool. Drag them apart. I'll make 2 game objects, cube and a sphere. Drag them inside. Reset the transforms and I'll scale them down. Awesome. What I might do is I might just alter the cube a little bit to help with the example. So scale it up a bit like that. And I'll add a directional light in the scene as well. Okay. I'm gonna rename this one cube and this one sphere. Now you can rename these, you could rename all of this if you wanted. As long as you don't hit apply, you won't be changing the information that's stored in the image targets, okay? And you can always hit revert if you do mess up these settings to go back to what the prefab used to be. Now one thing I'm going to show you is this, the world center mode. And this is important if you're going to try to do anything with city planning or based around a particular marker or map that you have in mind. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit play and we're going to zoom out. Now you notice that when I move this marker around, the camera moves. If I bring in the other marker, oh, we gotta change the marker settings. So press play. So you'll see the camera moves, but the actual sphere does not move at all. Okay, this sphere is standing still. Okay, that's this one. Okay, so it's not moving at all. Now when I drag in another marker, you can see that the cube moves, but even when I move the sphere, the cube still moves. Okay, and that has to do with the fact of the world center. So one marker will always be sort of the coordinate system, because you're working in a 3D space. The way Vuforia works is it picks one marker that's going to represent 0, 0, 0. Okay, and it will then manipulate everything based off that origin point. Now you have AR camera here, but you have it set to the first target. So the first target is the sphere in this case, and that's why the cube moves around the sphere. Okay, now we could do the opposite, so we could turn this on, and then everything moves around the cube, and then I bring the sphere in, and you can see that the sphere moves. So this is just something to keep in mind when you're working. So in our particular case, what we want to do is we want to go specify target, and we'll drag in the cube. So no matter if it's the sphere that's detected, so you see the sphere is moving, okay, or the cube is moving, it will always work off this cube. Okay, and that's what we want to happen, because the map is what we want to work from. Now to transfer this sphere to the cube, what we need to do is we need to make a new FSM. So I'm going to click on the sphere, I'm going to add an FSM, and I'll need two states. The first state is the listening state, because you're waiting on something to happen. And the second state is where you create the sphere. Create sphere. Awesome. Now we need a custom event called create sphere, and we'll add that in, and we'll need a finished event. We're using a finished event because once we perform all the actions of create the sphere and attach it to the other marker, we're then just going to go in and wait for the sphere to be clicked again. So the actions that we need is we need a mouse event. So I want get mouse down. Again, if you really wanted, you could actually just bypass all of this and just use a mouse down transition, and that means every time you click on it you could bypass it. I sometimes like to use this because I can pick if it's left, right, middle or down. So in this case I only want it to be the left one, whereas with this one I'm pretty sure it's any mouse event that's down. So that's the reason why we're using it in this scenario, because that means then you could use the right mouse button for anything you want. So we have our mouse down. Okay. What we now need to do is we need to create object. We need a set parent. Drag this up. I might just actually show you all the stuff we need. So we'll run with this first actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another game object. Or what I'll do is I'll actually duplicate this one, drag it off to one side. In the inspector I will right click, remove component, and what I need to do is I need to make a prefab. So I have a resources folder, and you can see I already have one called sphere in here. So I'll call this sphere test. Okay, or probably make more sense to call it this actually, prefab. Let's make a sphere prefab, and I'll drop it in, and I no longer need this one then. Okay, so if any model that you're planning on using, you should have a prefab from, so you'll be able to quickly drag and use it. The reason why I have to make a prefab with the sphere is because Unity doesn't keep the prefabs of the spheres. It's actually built inside of it. Okay, so what we need to do is the game object we want to create is this sphere prefab that we have, and the spawn point is the sphere. Okay, the owner that we want to use is the sphere. So what we need to do is we need to store it in a variable that we can use later on. So in this case we need a game object, and we can call this sphere created. Okay, we go back to our state and we store the object in sphere created. Now when we specify the game objects, we have this tab here which allows us to use a variable, and then we can drag in the cube and drag and drop. Now as you've seen the markers using before, they actually work off each other. There are some other packages like AR Toolkit where each camera looks after each marker and has a different coordinate system, but the good thing with Vuforia is it's all gathered and uses the one 3D space, so we can quickly and easily transfer an object from one marker to another marker. So we have all this set up. We are missing something, and I'll show you what that is and how we can fix it. So now if I hit play, you see I have the sphere. I'll just bring this up a bit. There we go. So I have the sphere and the cube. Now if I bring this to the corner and click on it and then bring it away, it looks like it's not there. It actually is, but you can see that it is this tiny little thing. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to actually set the scale, okay, because the scale in here is actually 0.2, okay, because it's the same as here, but when you add it into the other one, it actually scales it down even smaller. So a quick test of that would be you can click out here and you can see it transfers down. The reason being is that it's transferring this size into this size, okay, and this size is actually 247, so then it's trying to make 0.2 of one, and then all the maths evolve and it shrinks it down to that size. So what we need is we need a couple more actions. We need a get scale, and we set that above the create object. We want to specify the game object as the sphere, and we need to store it in a variable. So we need a vector 3 because we want x, y, and z. Okay. So we'll call this sphere scale. Go into state, and we'll select that one. Okay, and we're not going to use every frame because basically we're going to like run this once. So when we click on it, we get whatever scale it's at. We come down, we create it. You can see we have the spawn point, and we're storing it. The next thing we need to do is we need to set the scale. So we go set scale. Okay, and we can put it there. We put it before or after? I think we set at this point. We specify, and we want it at the sphere that's created. Cool. So now what we do is if we hit play and click on the sphere and then move the sphere away, you can see that the scale is way too big. See? So it's all the way up to this size. So what we need to do is just move that one in front. So we get the scale, create the object, set the scale, and set the parent. And now if we hit play, it should work properly. So we click this, and we move it, and we click it again. Okay. So you can see how the top-down view or the top-down approach works. Okay. We go through each of these. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can see if you have the order mixed up, you get it all mixed. You get some strange things happening. Okay. So that's how you would transfer from one marker to another marker. And keep in mind when you're using your own stuff that if you need a map or you're working from something specific, that you should set it as the world center. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial, guys. I'll see if I can probably cover text recognition in the next tutorial. Okay, All the best.